You know, we talked last week about the joint session of the legislature that Governor Kristi Noem addressed, and she was talking about problems that were taking place out on the, tribes, on Indian reservations, tribal land within South Dakota, part of the border crisis and what we're seeing as a result of the. And Jane also talked at length about what's going on in Texas and having been down there. In fact, she was just down there again yesterday. More on that coming up in a moment. So the governor, during her speech then to the joint session of the legislature last week, angered the Oglala Sioux tribe because their president on Friday wrote a statement addressed to the governor, and his name is Frank Starr comes out. And I want to share a portion of it. This I would have thought of this as a state story, certainly, but it's getting national attention. It's getting a lot of national attention. And Frank Starr comes out, said, among his comments, he said, I joined the U.S. Marine Corps and served honorably in foreign wars to protect the freedoms of all Americans, even Indians throughout the nation. He said, I don't want to see our Indian people and reservations used as a basis to create a bogus border crisis just to help Trump get reelected as president and Governor Noem, his running mate, as vice president. He also said that he was going after Texas here, calling the United States southern border in Texas an invasion by illegal immigrants and criminal groups in order to justify sending National Guard troops there. It's a red herring, he said, the Oglala Sioux tribe doesn't support, he wrote. He also said many of the migrants crossing into the United States don't deserve to be dehumanized and mistreated. Now, we're going to go back over these comments. I've got the governor's response for you. I'll share that here in a moment. And we'll break down his comments because, Starr comes out, touches on a lot of things, and he's absolutely right about some of the things that he touches on. He says that people who are coming into the United States illegally don't deserve to be dehumanized and mistreated. No, of course they don't. None of us, any reasonable people who have been talking about this, I don't hear reasonable people talking about dehumanizing them, talking about mistreating them. They just want people to, America is a welcoming nation, and it has been for a long time. We just want people to obey the law. We want people to follow the law, play by the rules. So I agree. They do not deserve to be dehumanized and mistreated, he said. And he said that many of them, they just want employment. They want to find a better life. I understand that. Totally agree with that. That's why we've got a process for people who want to come into the country. And then he said they don't need to be put in cages, separated from the, that was the Obama administration, right, that was doing that. You know that? That was the Obama administration that was putting some of those folks in cages. We've been through all this in years previous. See, here's the thing. Frank Starr comes out talking to you and me as if we don't have memories of our own, right? As if we haven't learned differently about who's really responsible for a lot of these things. But he said, they don't need to be separated from their children like during the Trump administration or be cut up by razor wire furnished by all places South Dakota. But again, that's like if you put up razor wire outside of your business in an attempt to try to keep people out. And somebody's trying to get in and gets cut up. Whose fault is that? I think that's quite a different perspective to look on it as being the fault of the people who installed the razor wire versus looking at it as the fault of who's ever trying to. Why would you try to traverse razor wire? I wouldn't do that on my worst day. So then the governor responded to this. Now I want to share her comments because she touched on, I thought, some great things. She said, it's unfortunate that President Starr comes out, chose to bring politics into a discussion regarding the effects of our federal government's failure to enforce federal laws at the southern border and on tribal lands. She said, my focus continues to be on working together to solve those problems. She said in my speech to the legislature earlier this week, I told the truth of the devastation that drugs and human trafficking have on our state and on our people. The Mexican cartels are not only impacting tribal reservations, they're impacting every community from our big cities to our small towns. But our tribal reservations are bearing the worst of that, she said. Speaking this fact is not meant to blame the tribes in any way. They are the victim here. They are the victim of cartel-driven criminal activity, and they are the victim of inaction by the federal government, she said. Now, there are things that, I don't, Governor Noem says that I may not agree with, but what is it there that is so, did she say anything in all of that you believe that she deserves to be banned from tribal lands? Because that's what they did on Friday. The governor is not, and they've done this before. This is not the first time we've seen this. This is their response. You're just banned from even coming onto our land. Now, wait a minute. Again, I keep looking for common sense. And unfortunately, you just can't find it in a lot of areas and in a lot of places and coming out of the mouths of a lot of people. Common sense just does not prevail. Now, I deeply respect the service of Frank Starr comes out. And, he said, having served honorably in foreign wars to protect the freedoms of all Americans, I'm grateful to all of our nation's veterans who have done that. And he said, but when he responds to this as a bogus border crisis, there's nothing bogus about what we see going on right now on the border. There's nothing bogus about this. Absolutely nothing bogus about it. You don't like Donald Trump? Fine. You don't like Donald Trump, whatever. But, Mr. Starr comes out. Don't puke up what you've heard from the legacy media. Do not go through, honestly, because he sounds like he gets his talking points from the legacy media. And that's his perspective on what's going on in the world. That's not the reality, I think, that we're living in. Again, if I thought, and I would agree, I can respect this. He wants to protect the Indian people. He wants to protect the reservations. I can understand that and feel the same way. But is that really what's going on here? I think for those who are looking at this a little bit differently, that's not what we see. And nor is that what I'm hearing as the governor is saying. Again, she tribal reservations, she says, bearing the worst of all of this in South Dakota. And she makes it clear, I'm not blaming the tribes in any way. They are the victim here. They are the victim of cartel-driven criminal activity, and they are the victim of inaction by the federal government. They have long been victims of inaction by the federal government. Frank Stark comes out. Again, he's the president of the Oglala Sioux tribe. He banished the governor then from coming on to tribal lands. And again, was there anything the governor said to the average South Dakotan that it was alarming in her legislative message last week? And again, we shared a lot of it with you. We shared about half of her message. She spoke for about 15 minutes, and we shared about half that with you. And she was talking about she talked a little bit about the border and what she had seen going on at the border, reaching out then to the tribes and saying, wanting to work together. And there have been so many misunderstandings and miscommunications and hard feelings, understandably. I get this. I've lived my life in South Dakota. I understand this. Is the governor making a good faith effort to try to reach through that? Sure seemed like it to me. Very much seemed like it to me. And then the response is to ban the government from the tribal lands? I don't know that. Again, why shouldn't and why can't we, and this is where I get frustrated, why can't we say, come to an agreement and say, all right, we have had disagreements in the past. Let us work together on these issues. How can we work together? What can we do? What aren't we doing that you need? There has got to be roads to progress instead of people continually putting up barriers. And that's what we see over and over. And then bringing in Donald Trump. Nobody is talking about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is not a part of that conversation. But when the legacy media has infected your thought process, this is what you get. It's just nonsense for so many of us. And it's frustrating to me because the governor's trying to reach out. And I'm not saying tribes don't have legitimate concerns or fears, or let's talk about those things. Let's use that as a way to take steps forward and see what we can do to get the cartels off the reservations. And if something was phrased in a way that was hurtful, let's address that. But nowhere in any of the remarks that I've seen, I think it was like 4 pages, that statement that he released. Let's talk about the reality of what's happening, and are there ways that we can work together where we can find agreement? We don't, I think everybody looks at so many of these things as we're going to totally embrace each other. And hey, listen, I think we all realize and understand that relations have been rocky, right? But you got to start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. Do you want solutions, Or do you want to keep playing the same game that's been played in this state for, by many? It just gets, I get frustrated. So again, talking about calling this a bogus, it's not an invasion, it's a red herring. You know what? I think folks who say that you just show their own ignorance and they have no idea. All right, let's get to a few of your calls. I appreciate your thoughts. 605-336-1320 if you'd like to join the program. Good morning, Sean. You're on Kello.
Good morning, Greg. I'm frustrated by this because it sounds, based on what I've heard and what you've been reporting, the governor is making a good faith effort. She is calling out the reality of the situation, and the leader, at least one of the leaders of the tribes, is simply coming back with leftist liberal talking points and doesn't even sound willing to listen, willing to try to work together to address some of these issues on our reservations. Because it's just, you see the downward spiral in the reservations, and it makes me wonder, what do they have going on that they want to just keep to themselves? Because she called it out. She says the cartels are making inroads in the reservations,
right?
And if the cartels can have a distribution point 40 miles away and have several of them in the middle of the state, what's that going to do to the rest of us? What's that going to do to the rest of the state? What's it going to do to the population on the reservation? If we don't stand together and stand for the rule of law, stand for stopping the influx of the drugs and anything else that the cartels are bringing in, it's going to continue to tear down the reservation, to tear down the state, to tear down the nation. It is absolutely an invasion, and we need to do everything that we can to stop it.
So they are saying, "Oh no, it's not an invasion; it's a bogus invasion." Do you feel that way?
It's absolutely an invasion. It's people that don't see it as an invasion have an agenda, and they are probably on the side of those who want more illegals coming in, more things coming in to corrupt and disrupt our society and our country.
Yeah, absolutely. And this would be an opportunity, I think, especially for the tribes to distance themselves from the rhetoric of this administration rather than parroting that same stuff to us, and see this as an opportunity. Hey, you've got Governor Noem, and you may have disagreements. Fine, let's put all that on the table. But this is an honest effort to try to work together to try to solve some of these problems. Why wouldn't you accept that? That's the problem that I have, I think. Cody, I'm glad you called. Good morning. You're on Kello.
Hey, Greg. What fascinates me the most is that the president of the tribe doesn't deny what Christie is claiming. Christie says there's a group called the Ghost Dancers, blah, blah,
yes.
blah. Well, his response is the Ghost Dance is a sacred ritual. Well, she's not talking about the dance. She's talking about a group of people that go by a name, and he doesn't deny it. And,
I certainly didn't take that or her trying to be demeaning of the ghost dancers. She was talking about those who were infiltrating and trying to use that then for their own ends.
Yeah, Sean said, the cartels are making inroads, and that's really the bottom line claim here is the cartels are making inroads in the reservations, and this president of this particular tribe doesn't deny it. I'd like to hear him deny it and say, nope, they are not. Trust me, I'm the president of this, and I tell you that there's no cartels in our reservation. But he hasn't said that. So I'd like somebody
not
to
that
ask
I've
him
heard.
about
No,
it.
not that I have heard. What do you think is the difficulty here in this case, our governor and the tribes versus then the rest of the state, folks like me? What is preventing us from being able to have any kind of meaningful dialogue about some of these issues and try to help?
I don't know. I can't find any answer to that.
So it's not making sense to you.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
seems illogical.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Unless, of course, you just are solely, you'd rather parrot what the legacy media is saying, and he seems to be doing that. Cody, thanks so much for your call. I appreciate it. Yeah, I think there's an opportunity for the people of South Dakota to work together on this issue, rather than banning the government from the reservation and the homelands of the Oglala Sioux tribe, rather than banning the governor. Is there a way that, because I think there's a way for them to be able to say, we think this is wrong, make your points, but why are we unable to move forward? Just simply banning her from tribal property, it doesn't make sense.